Hey, what's up everybody, it's Axel, and today's video will be talking about the BGVP Phantom. This IEM comes in at around $800 and it has a very interesting driver configuration. It has 2 DTs, 2 bone conduction drivers, 2 BAs, and 2 ESTs. And not only that, all of the drivers with the exception of the dynamic drivers are all branded drivers. Like you can see here, it has 2 Sonion ESTs, 1 Sonion ballast armature for the mids, 1 Nozzle ballast armature for the mids, 2 graphene dynamic drivers, and 2 Sonion bone conduction drivers. So that is something interesting. I usually care about the sound. I'm not that much about the branding of the drivers, but to see them go all out like that is definitely interesting. Got me curious what they achieved here. So let's have a look quickly what comes in the box. It opens up. It has this, majestic presentation. And then you get this tray that opens and give you these ear tips. Bass, vocals, balanced, pair of foam, cleaning brush. That's it. Then you get this nice carrying case. Feels nice in the hand. It's a bit roomy. You can add a dongle or a cable. Cable is not modular. It comes in with 4.4, but it's actually feels very, very nice and very premium. It has this texture going on for it and the feeling, and most of all, it's very practical. No microphonics, it doesn't tangle, very soft, no memory, no issues really. It stays. If you put it on the desk, it stays. It's 2-pin. I think the cable is nice and gives me a feeling of high quality. In terms of the earpieces themselves, this is how they look like. This is the design of the BGVP Phantom. Obviously, it's a matter of taste. There is 1 vent on each side. The nozzle diameter is 6.2, so it's within the average size compared to most IEMs. And in terms of isolation, it has a slightly above average passive noise isolation. Comfort-wise, I feel it's very comfortable. I had no issues with it. This is one IEM that's actually pretty nice. It's not even that big compared to the amount of drivers it has. There is also another vent here, so it has 2 vents. Excuse me. Before I begin, guys, I just want to take a moment to talk about the bone conduction driver here, because this has Sonion bone conduction drivers, and usually when I have bone conduction driver IEMs, if I tap on them like that, I usually get a vibration. I feel a vibration in my hand, and if I wear them, I clench my teeth. I hear some ringing or some sound in my skull, so to speak. It's a unique sound. That's how I know it's working. That's another thing, is the stage and the imaging. So they give me a few things that tell me, hey, the bone conduction driver is adding something unique to your experience. I had that even with the Pula Anvil, the Canera Verdandi. But I have to say here, I'm not sure if I'm getting any effect from the bone conduction driver, or maybe if the effect is subtle enough, because if I tap, it doesn't do any vibration. And I was told that this is how the Sonion drivers, bone conduction drivers, work. And I kind of, okay, that's nice. But what exactly does it do? I'm not exactly sure. I experimented with small size ear tips, deep fitting ear tips, and I added in so it contacted my ears very well. And I did a lot of things. Maybe it adds something. Maybe when I added it, maybe the bass became different, or the mid-range texture, or the space. I'm not exactly sure, but it's if there is a difference, and I'm saying if there's a difference, it's very subtle. And I just wanted to preface this review with that, because probably the Sonion bone conduction drivers will be attractive for a lot of people, and I wanted to mention my experience with it. So I'm going to talk about this as a normal IEM. Whether what I'm hearing is because partly due to the bone conduction driver or not, I cannot get that, but this is a bone conduction driver that works differently compared to traditional ones, so keep that in mind. Now let's talk about the sound signature. Let's look at the graph together. And the graph of the BGV Phantom is that you get a kind of a neutral mid-bass focused bass response. You get a very clean separation between the bass and the mids. You get a highlighted and emphasized forward upper mid range, and you get an emphasized lower treble with a very smooth, very smooth and natural upper treble. So let's break it down quickly. In terms of the bass, I like it a lot, actually. It's not there when it comes to the sub bass. It does have some rumble, but it's not a strong one. But I like the way it portrays the mid bass. I think the mid bass is attractive because of the detail, the texture, and the impact. It has a very strong impact. It punches you very strong. The slam is absolutely powerful, and it's even stronger than what I see on the graph. And when I compared it to the Pilgrim, which has like a similar level of mid bass, I have to say the impact here is stronger. Now this got me wondering, is this because of the bone conduction driver? I'm not sure. I just have to say the bass is clean, it's not too much, and it has a very strong impact, and that's very enjoyable. It kind of makes you feel satisfied with the amount, although I want a bit more. Now, when we move on to the mid-range, we have a very clear and clean separation between the bass and the mids, and according to my preference, it's a bit too clean, guys. Like, this is a bit too clean. That separation, sure, it will give you a lot of cleanliness and detail in the mid-range, but it comes off at the expense of making some of the male vocals sound a bit lean, some of the thick male vocals, and some of the, you know, instruments like the low end of the piano notes, the cellos, the Barry White, the Johnny Cash, these kind of vocals sound a bit lean, too clean, and they don't have the fullness, the lushness, the rich, lush sound that I usually get. And even the note weight is a bit on the slightly thin side, and this could appeal to many people or not. It's kind of a preference. If you like the clean vocal presentation that doesn't have anything, any warmth, nothing, it's just very lean and clean, you're probably going to get that here. And you know, I kind of understand why some people like that, but for me personally, I like a bit of fullness. I like a bit of a full body presentation. I like a fuller bass response, a stronger bass. I don't like the leanness that much. In terms of the mid-range itself, the upper mid-range, it's very, very clean and very emphasized. It's not shouty, but it's very clean, and it adds an element of vocal and instrument clarity that many people will enjoy if they like a vocal forward sound signature. And if you think about it, even the treble, when it acts along with the upper mid-range elevation, the treble elevation, you know, and the way the bass separates from the mids, you kind of understand why I said some of the male vocals sound lean and some of the instruments could use a bit more heft and weight, if you will. Female vocals actually sound fantastic. They have the detail, they have the extension. The treble adds a lot of lively extension to the female vocals, and the mid-range itself sounds very spacious and very natural, something I absolutely enjoyed. There is an element of space in the instruments, between the instruments. There is an element of air. Whether this is due to the tuning or the bone conduction driver, I cannot confirm that, but there's absolutely an element of air and space that's absolutely wonderful and enjoyable. Moving on to the treble, I will start with the lower treble, because this is where I feel it's a bit emphasized and it's a bit elevated. And not only that, it's actually emphasized, so a lot of sounds that, you know, live in the treble region come across as highlighted and emphasized. But not only that, some sounds come across as sibilant as well, and at the very least, when they're not sibilant, the S and T letter comes across as emphasized. And the upper air, I like it more. The area of the upper treble or the upper air region, that one is tastefully done. It's not splashy, it's not overly airy, but the lower treble and the upper mid-range emphasis just adds something to the, you know, timbre of the instruments that makes it sound a bit lean, not exactly full or natural sounding compared to other IEMs that have a fuller sounding mid-range. Now, when we move on to the technicalities of the BGVP Phantom, if I bring up my technical scale, I will put the BGVP Phantom right around the level of detail of the Elysian Pilgrim. Maybe, you know, maybe the Pilgrim is 10% more, maybe it's the same. They're kind of very similar sounding, but I have to say that the Pilgrim just has a bit of an edge when it comes to the separation, the imaging as well. Now, when it comes to the soundstage, I feel the soundstage of the BGVP is actually pretty nice. And again, I'm not sure if it's due to the bone conduction, because I have other IEMs that don't have a bone conduction driver and have the even better soundstage. So I'm not exactly sure, but it does have a good soundstage, good width, good element of depth, and the imaging, I would describe it as very good. In terms of comparison against something like the Elysian Pilgrim Noir, which is another IEM that comes in at this price point, I kind of felt the Elysian Pilgrim Noir suits my preferences better. Basically, it has greater sub-bass extension, a more powerful mid-bass impact, and at the same time, it has a proper note weight, so I'm getting the fullness I was talking about. I'm not getting a lean sound in some of the instruments or the vocals. I'm getting the note weight, I'm getting the fullness, the richness of the vocals. The mid-range is tuned in a nice way as well, so that if you listen to rock or metal, you can raise the volume and you enjoy yourselves. And even the treble is tuned in a way that just made me appreciate it. It's just toned down where it needs to be in the lower treble, and it has some small boost in the upper A region, you know, or the upper treble regions to give it that air and that clarity. In terms of detail, I think they're both at a similar level of detail. I think both of them have almost the same level of separation. I would say that maybe the Noir gets an edge, and that's a maybe. In terms of the stage, I feel the Noir has slightly better stage, and that's what I was talking about with the bone conduction driver. And in terms of the imaging, again, both are fantastic, but maybe the edge of the Noir was for me the best. What does the Phantom do better than the Elysian Noir? I think it adds an element of vocal clarity, like it pushes the vocals up to the surface, and the instruments as well, they just pushed more to the surface. But on the Noir, I can hear the same thing, just it's a bit quieter and more balanced with the rest of the tonality. Another thing is the timbre. You kind of notice that as well because of the tuning. It's not as bright on the Noir, and it's not as forward in terms of the vocals, so you get a full representation. So basically, the Noir is for the bass, for the fullness, for the richness of the sound, and for the balanced or controlled treble, and that's the comparison between them. Let me talk quickly who I recommend this to, who I don't recommend this to. I recommend the BGVP Phantom for people who like strong bass, neutral bass response that focus on the mid bass, people who like clean, crisp vocals, people who like their vocals to be very clean, very forward, not shouty, but very clean, people who like a treble emphasis, people who like branded drivers, people who like Sonion bone conduction drivers, people who like good detail, good fit, good comfort, a lot of detail, a lot of separation. But the highlight for me is the strong mid bass impact, the neutral bass, and the very clean sounding vocals. That's the highlight for me. Comfortable fit as well. Who I don't recommend this to, this one is very easy. If you're treble sensitive, I don't recommend it for you. If you are sensitive to the upper mid-range as well, although it's not shouty to me, but if you are sensitive to the upper mid-range, usually try to stick with something that has a safer mid-range tuning, something like Explorer, Reformer 5, you know, Pilgrim, or even other IEMs like SA6 or something like that. I don't recommend it for people who like warm sound signatures, people who like lots of bass, people who like bass quantity, and it's important for them, people who like sub bass, people who don't like lean vocals, people who like some fullness in the mid-range, some lushness, some full body presentation, proper note weight, or even thick note weight. These are all reasons that let me tell you guys, no, you know, there are other options out there in the market. I will go ahead and give the BGVP Phantom a rating of 3.5 stars out of 5. It definitely does a lot of things good. It does sound nice, to be honest. It sounds detailed and has a few good qualities going on for it, like the mid-bass impact, the vocal clarity, but I felt it could use a bit more sub-bass extension, could use a bit more mid-bass, could use a bit more fullness in the mid-range, and the lower treble region could be toned down a bit. That's why I gave it a 3.5, but definitely it's there for some people to check it out. That concludes my review of the BGVP Phantom. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section. It's a nice IM. It's going to be lovely for many people, and if you have any questions about it, let me know down in the comments. And until then, guys, I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.